Hey, stop me, Ken. Stop me, Ken. Very good,
What
check.
a way to start it, Michael.
Called you the wrong name there. Well, welcome to Everything Matters. I'm Mikey Doak. I'm joined today by the second best.
I'll just call you Michael there.
That's alright, honestly. Oh, that's my Sunday name, I suppose, and it is Sunday today. So, no, welcome to Everything Matters. I'm Mikey Doak. To be joined by the second best looking Higgins in the family. So, Thomas, how are you?
I'm not too bad, man. Yourself?
I know, bad, mate. How was your weekend? All good?
It was good. A wee bit tender the day, but I've got quite bad allergies for the last couple of weeks, so it's kind of, if I do start sneezing at any point, that's why. I'm not getting any COVID or anything, don't worry.
Oh, no worries at all, mate. That's good to hear. So, as I say, you got in touch with the channel also as soon as it launched, which I appreciate. The support's been great for yourself. Your brother's been great and all, and kind of focus. So, just going to say it was going to be similar as the same as the last interview with Ali. So, as I say, the response for that was good and all. So,
yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
Hopefully, I can just take care for there. So, just tell us a bit about you growing up anyway. Thomas, how was life for you?
Well, going back to when I was probably about, as far as I can remember, I mean, I obviously grew up with my mum and my dad and that, just like everyone else, went to school, did your usual thing. And obviously, as I was talking to you about the last time, kind of my secondary school kind of phase wasn't the greatest. Kind of came out my shell a bit more in second year, but I was very quiet and reserved in primary school, and I wasn't a very chatty boy. Obviously now, talking to me, you kind of see that I'm quite a chatty person, but back then I was kind of quite a reserved person. So yeah, kind of primary school years was all right, you know, just like anyone, you know, no one wants to go to school, but you went. And yeah, I quite enjoyed school to a point, but then you got to your secondary school, and I think that's when I got to a stage of my life where I kind of started to kind of become more of, like I said, me as a person and that, and went through first year okay, but around about that time, my mum and dad were splitting up, and it's just kind of the transition from them splitting up, and then there's a lot of things going in the background at school. So through the kind of like the first and second year of secondary school, there's a lot of things going on myself personally, and after I think it was about second, just going to third year, I left school, and as I touched on the last time with yourself, was mostly to do with kind of going for a kind of bullying thing at school, and then what was going on with my mum and my dad and everything in the background as well. So all these things kind of came together, and then from kind of like second year coming into third year, I left school altogether. And then once I left school, that's when I kind of went through a bad phase of my life. And yeah, that's kind of how it all kind of stemmed from me. Ended up going through a psychologist because I was seeing images at night that weren't there, or hallucinating, is another word.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was a lot of things going on from that period. It's a very long kind of story. There's a lot of bits I'm probably going to miss when we do this. That's basically when things started to kind of take a big turn for me in secondary school, and from there on out, it's been quite a long journey from then to now. But it's been a lot of bumps along the way from then, and yeah, I mean that's kind of basically how it started from. But I can obviously get into more detail as we go on. But that's kind of basically how it kind of kicked on from growing up. So this is a quick rundown.
No worries at all, mate. So it's not been as easy for you growing up. There's probably a lot of different upbringings than most children would go through in society. So, see the bullying did that start before secondary school? Was it a primary school thing, or was it just as soon as you went to secondary? That's when the issue started.
I think because I was, like I said, was quite a quiet person. Generally, people who are quite quiet, you know, you tend to hear them. I've heard it a lot of times. You know, folk have been bullied because they know they don't think folks going to answer back. So it kind of I think you had some maybe kind of some of it in primary bit, but it really kicked in secondary school. Obviously, won't name any people on this, but there's a couple of individuals that had started it, and yeah, I think that as I said, that along with what was going on in the background of my life, all came together, and that's kind of how things kind of went downhill from there.
Yeah. So obviously when that started from basically the ring, it was like a ring leader. It was quite similar to the first episode. Like first guest, she like experienced bullying, and there was just that ring leader, and there was quite a group of them that bullied her,
Yeah.
and that's also similar to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
See, how long did that go on for? The bullying, was that a long term thing?
It was kind of on. It was on and off for the first. In first year, it didn't really start off early on. It was kind of later on in the start of going into secondary school, and then it carried on to the second year. And I was struggling with it, but at the same time, I just kept going back into school, and I realised there was just I was struggling with it. But eventually, I told my mum and told her what was happening. That, which, as I said to you, my mum's a very protective nature, so my mum was very much. She contacted the school. She spoke to the school, said that she was disappointed to hear that they've not done anything to deal with what was going on in the background for myself, and they were very much aware of what was going on. It's just that they didn't, as my mum had said herself, she felt like the school let them down. There wasn't enough support for it, and there was nothing really done about it. One of the things that did happen was I was taken out one of the classes that these people run, and I was transferred into the kind of base part of the school, but I wasn't doing the same education there. I was doing a lower level, so because of that, I didn't get to. I wasn't doing the same level where I was at that point in my school time. So I wasn't doing the same level of English and whatever. So that didn't really help me. That kind of set me back in its own way.
Yeah.
I'd even had my mum come into one of the classes, which I can understand why she did it, but I don't know if it actually helped. If that makes sense, I understand her intention behind it. I think that probably didn't help things. Obviously, when if you're experiencing bullying, that can obviously not help it. You're probably more adding fuel to the fire, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So obviously you were saying your mum, like she went to the school, she was disappointed, and obviously Chris, he's your brother. Chris, he's a year younger than you.
Yep.
Did he know at the time it was going on, the bullying?
He was aware about it. Christopher had been, from the best of my knowledge, had been asked about it. Where's Thomas and so on. You can probably imagine that would happen, because they were brothers in school. So Christopher heard. I think Christopher heard quite a bit about it, and he was kind of getting asked a lot at school what was happening, but no one really knew what was going on. No one knew what had happened. I just kind of disappeared from school, and no one in the town really knew what had happened. It was just a case of, as I said, I just vanished pretty much. And if you've seen me on the very occasion, there was a couple of folk had seen me before and shouted me in the street and said, "Oh, you're skiving," and all that. But no one knew what happened at the time. It was obviously, we were all quite young at the time. I mean, I would have been probably about 12 years old, becoming 13 roundabout the time I left school. So yeah, I was at a very young age at that time, and obviously we've all changed as we've got older now. But back then, a lot of folk probably didn't understand anyway. So.
So in that time, how did you feel mentally?
I would say that I went from initially I was fine at the start of school, but as time was going on, I was getting more anxious. I think depression really hit, and kind of like around about just before I went into third year, and I think as I stayed in the house for such a long period of time, my anxiety and my fear of the outside world was starting to grow.
Yeah.
And obviously, the longer you sit in the house and you isolate yourself from everyone, you start to, it becomes normality just to stay in the house. So the idea of walking from the house to the car was a challenge for me. I would look at the window and I'd be looking each way to see if anyone was walking by or whatever. If I heard school kids go by, that was enough to trigger my anxiety, because obviously you just associate that with your school. So I was getting really bad all the time, and I was putting weight on as well. I put on quite a bit of weight between 13 and 14. That was a really bad phase because the comfort was starting, and as I said, I didn't exercise. I sat in the house and just removed myself from society pretty much. So,
that must have been hard on obviously your brother as well, having to go into school every day and everyone like questioning him, and also like, that's going to have an impact on the whole family as well, like away from school, isn't it? For all
Yeah,
the whole family cope in that time.
that's a good point, because Christopher, obviously he's just going to school and he's doing his own thing, and his older brother is not at school. So he's probably going through that thinking, it's difficult because you're going to get asked questions, but he knew what was going on. He just obviously didn't want to tell people what had happened. Christopher was supportive, as was my mum.
Yep.
But my mum was very, very protective, as I said earlier, and she didn't want to take me out of school initially, but she realised how bad I was getting, and it ended up she felt like she was under a lot of pressure herself, because she didn't want to remove me. But eventually she did, and we just it just went from there, really.
So just at such a young age dealing with that, like say your mum as well, and obviously your brother. So seeing that time that happened, that obviously the bullying, did you ever contemplate like ending your own life? Did you feel as if was that running through your head at all?
Yeah, there was a. I'm just trying to remember back now, because I think it was probably somewhere between. I think it was probably maybe stemmed afterwards, but there's a couple of times I was in the house and I just looked out to the back window and I just looked at it, and there was a couple. You've got these images in your head where you're thinking about, I've just lobbed myself out that window right now, and that sounds. It sounds terrible to hear that, because I don't think anyone wants to hear that you're contemplating those kind of thoughts. But I did think along those lines at times. I never was in the stage of my life where I wanted to act on it, but I did have suicidal thoughts. I just never acted on any of the things that was going on in my head at the time. It just got really bad at some points.
And that's the thing as well. Like, see if you said that to somebody, people maybe just brush it off, and that's the whole point of the channel just now. I'm trying to help break that stigma. Like it is an illness at the end of the day. It's an illness. Is it curable? It's an illness you live with the rest of your life. It's just how you deal with it, as well as use all your support mechanisms and things like that. Because I was just, as you say, at a young age, like what age were you, 12 or 13 at the time? You said you were
probably about 12 or 13. Yeah.
Like no one at any age should feel like that, but for a guy so young at the time, feeling like that, contemplating obviously ending his life, and that's where I go back to, obviously, like that's where we need like more training. I think like in schools, like don't get wrong, I think teachers are brilliant in schools, what to do and resources, but I think for children, they don't realise, like the bullies that are doing it, as I said in the first episode, they don't realise the impact it's going to have on. See the bullies that are doing it, they might be affected in later on in life by family members that are going through similar. So also just touching on that. So when did you go? Did you go and seek help right away as soon as the thoughts started coming into your head?
My mum had kind of, as I said, she'd been very supportive, and she'd contacted I think it was a psychologist, and I went. I think it was in Ayr. We went to. I can't remember I think it was up with the Racecourse Road way in Ayr. If you go down by the early bowl, you turn left just down that way. So we went to this bit, and she was pretty much asking me questions about how I was and blah blah. And they do different types of training. I think it was a thing they do with the hands to help you. It's a kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember now. But they were pretty much just asking me how I was and so on, but I didn't really feel much of the benefits coming from it. But I was told that the images I was seeing in the middle of the night at the window that weren't there was, from the psychologist's words, was my dad. So that was what they thought that I was seeing, because there was, as I said to you when we first spoke, that I'd be lying in my bed and I'd look out the window and I'd see a dark shadowy image at the window. And I remember actually lobbing out of the bed onto the floor and running to the next room, because I thought there was someone actually there, but it was just me. As I was saying, it was hallucinations that were happening over time. They didn't happen all the time, but they did happen, and that's how bad my anxiety was getting.
And are you on like any? Did you go on like medication? Any form as such, or did you just get like the help from like psychologists?
Well, because of my age, I couldn't go into antidepressants. I can't remember. It was some type of liquid.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't an antidepressant. It was a I can't remember now what it was called. I don't know if you've got much understanding of the different types of medication, but because of
Yeah.
my age, I couldn't take antidepressants.
Yeah.
I think it's when I only got to about 17, 18, I could actually go into the tablets.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's just say it's really it's sort of basically like Calpol you were on, kind of like.
It was it was something that anything that, because obviously you don't really hear as much about children.
Mm-hmm.
It's more, you probably more hear with adults, but kids obviously get affected, and they couldn't prescribe me antidepressants at the time, so I can't remember. I couldn't tell you what it was I was on, but it was something in a liquid form, kind of like you said, similar to Calpol, something like that.
Mm-hmm. See, at that time, obviously, when everything like, came to fruition,
Mm-hmm.
like obviously you grew up with your mum and your brother. So, and
Yeah.
did your dad as well? Did you have a relationship with your dad?
Not really, to be honest with you. My dad, he worked for a company called Dodder Troon. You've probably heard of them. And he worked there, I think, pretty much most of his adult life. So
Mm-hmm.
he'd be working Monday to Friday,
Mm-hmm.
and he'd come back on the Friday,
Yeah.
and then he'd go to the pub,
Mm-hmm.
and then he'd be hung over the Saturday, and then he'd get the Saturday night, and then he'd be hung over the Sunday. Mm-hmm. And this is literally every week. This is pretty much my memory of my dad as I grew up, because he would be out at the pubs every week.
Mm-hmm.
He'd run up a tab at the Victory Bar in Girvan, and never seen him. Our weekends weren't like what you'd expect for kids with other parents. You know, you go, go to the cinema, go to a safari park, something like that. We never did that. If we did anything, it was with my mum, because my dad was too hungover to go and do anything. He never ever suggested or said, let's go and do something. It was always pretty much that, I seen him briefly at the weekends.
Yeah.
And, I remember, like, you'd run through to the bedroom, and
Mm-hmm.
he's lying in the bed and he's hungover and he's not feeling great, and then you're trying to talk to him, and he'd be shouting his head off at you because he didn't like you coming into the room and he's quite hungover. So
Mm-hmm.
my memories of my dad is very much the same, but the actual, like, in terms of like the good times that you would go back and say, oh, this was a great time we had together, I couldn't really tell you any, if I was being honest.
Your mum was like she was performing the two roles of mum and dad. Yeah.
I did both, right, absolutely.
Yeah, so shout out to your mum as well. So, don't know how
my post earlier on about it, and that was pretty much, as I said, Happy Father's Day, because she was there for my mum. She did like you said, both of the roles. So, yeah, I mean, like you said, shout out to my mum. So she probably will watch this, but she did say to me, "Don't you be mentioning my name?" I said, "I'll not mention your name. I'll just call you Mum. That's fine."
Big shout out to her for putting up with that for our years, I know. But, no, as I say, like life obviously growing up for you was obviously tough, and so how has it like impacted you later on in life with this condition? How have you dealt with it since then?
Well, going from my early teens, once I was on antidepressants, I think between about 15 and 16, I spent the majority of my time playing the Xbox and 360, and it's going to sound daft, but that was a really good coping mechanism for me, because I made friends online through Xbox Live at the time, which was great for me in a social aspect, because you're getting to speak to different folk, and it helped me build a bit of confidence that, you're interacting with other people, which was something obviously I missed because I left school so early. So I'd spend a lot of time in the 360. I remember getting it in 2006, so I'd have probably been about 14, becoming 15 years old. So once I got that console, I just ended up becoming a bit more social, speaking to more folk. And once I turned 17, my mum tried to get me to do my driving lessons. This is, for me, the starting point where things did start to build, because I'm a big car enthusiast. I absolutely love cars. If you've seen any of my pictures on Facebook, annoying folk constantly posting pictures of my car that's just been washed and level. It's just the same as it was the last time. So this is when it stemmed. Once I did my driving lessons, my mum pretty much knew what's going to get me to get out of the house, do a driving lesson. So, started the driving lessons. I had a driving instructor called Billy Brown, who's no longer with us. He sadly died a while ago, and he was absolutely fantastic. He was a really laid-back personality. Really, really, that type of guy. He just never reacted if you made a mistake in the road. The guy was great about it. He was really, really nice guy.
Yeah.
And I will watch that guy, because if it wasn't for him, I don't know if I'd still be in the same place. But he made the process of learning to drive and obviously getting my first car a really big step for me. And I passed my driving test and my theory the first time because I put everything into it. I wanted to pass my test.
Yeah.
And once I got my first car, that's when, for me, things built from then.
Yeah.
I never socialised or anything until later on, but this was a big stepping stone for me.
So see Billy, obviously your driving instructor, did you tell him about what was going on at home? Was he like a good support for you, or did you not really mention anything?
Well, my mum had gave him a quick rundown of how I was. I was quite anxious. I didn't want to leave the house pretty much, and he knew about it. He was aware of it, but it was never mentioned. It was never like there was. I can obviously at the time, because it was never mentioned, it helped. You're just going out doing your lessons like any other teenager was doing. And I do remember the first day that he came to the house before I went out and did my lesson, and I think I ran up and down to the toilet about 10 times. And sorry if anyone who's listened to that, by the way. That's what happened that day. It was my anxiety was really, really bad, and my mum had said to me, and she always said this when I was a kid as well. She used to say to me, "If you believe in yourself, you'll do it. You can do it. You just need to trust in yourself. You can do it." And I went and did the lesson. It's almost like, the past 5 or 6 years prior to that never happened. I went out, did the lessons, and as I said, the confidence just built from then, and that was a really big thing for me at the time, and it really did help me.
Yep. So as you say, that's a big step in the right direction for you in your road to recovery, because one thing can change your life for the good or the bad. So it is, and it's true.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you didn't go and do the driving lessons, would you be here telling the story just now? Do you know what I mean? So that's off to you, mate. Yeah. So growing up, did you get into any line of work at all? Did you, like, obviously once you pass your test, obviously you had to pay for a new car. What did you do in terms of like work-wise for that? Did you?
Working wise, I think it was at 2010. I passed my driving test. So I passed my driving test on the 7th. I think it was the 7th of April, 2010. I passed it.
Yeah.
So I did some work experience at a local garage. Again, these are just like the wee small steps, things you wouldn't have done before. If you told me about 6 years before that I was going to be doing work experience, I probably wouldn't have believed the person, because for me, that was a different thing altogether. You're into that, especially a garage environment where you get the kind of lads, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The type that take the mick out each other, and if you, as I said, you isolate yourself that far from society, you don't. That's a completely different. That's a huge step for you. So I did the work experience. I think it wasn't a long period. It was probably about a month I did it for. I did enjoy it. I found it a bit daunting at first, but as I said, the interactions and being around other guys and being in a social environment was good for me. And I took, even though it wasn't a long period of time, I still did get something from it. And then after I'd done that, I think I'd got a job at a local tea room as a waiter. And I was only in this job for 2 weeks because. And initially, I started the job and I thought to myself, well, at least it's something, I'm doing something. And I didn't enjoy the job whatsoever. And I get pulled up one day, 2 weeks into the job. And he sat me down. He says, look, you're a nice, pleasant guy. You're well-mannered and that, and you're good with people. He says, but I don't think this job's for you. And I turned around to him and I says, I completely agree with you. I don't think this job's for me. I says, but I do appreciate the fact you gave me the opportunity to do it in the first place. And then he turns around and says, well, I'm going to give you your remaining wages for the time you've been here. And he says, I wish you all the best. And that was it. I moved on from that. But the rejection and the disappointment of that not working out, it didn't affect me as much as I thought it would. Yeah. I did find it quite, I was a bit upset that, the job hadn't worked out. But I didn't want to let my confidence go down. And I just thought to myself, okay, it's not worked out, then fair enough. And then I think I was working at Land Energy, which is a local pellet factory out by Greenstone.
Yeah.
They were building the factory around 2012. So this was around that same time period, and I did a 2-3 week thing where you're just painting, tidying up the factory, just basic stuff, and then I get paid off. Because obviously they were only taking on a couple of folk at the time, so I never got the job, but I did get a full month's wage, my first wage. I think I earned about £950, which was astronomical money for me at the time. And yeah, it was a really good feeling, that way you get in your bank account, you think I can buy stuff now.
What was the first thing you bought?
What?
What was the first thing you bought?
I think I bought stuff for my car.
Oh, did you?
That's what I had a gold Volvo at the time.
Oh, did you?
Christopher never liked to go after me. He said he didn't have a very nice things to say about that car, but it was a kind of, it's kind of royal gold, and I love this car. Not many others did, but I liked it. And I spent a lot of money in waxes, polishes, the full shebang. I pretty much, I must have spent a couple £100 in buying like auto glim stuff. How expensive these kind of products are. So I spent a lot of money on that, and that was my hobby. I'd valet the car every single day. I think I waxed it about every single week.
Did you?
And it's not true when they say it takes your paint off. It's good for your paint. So I spent a lot of time with the car on that, and that was again another good thing because it was something to work towards. It was something to keep me occupied. And the car for me was like a wee project. It was an older car. It wasn't a new car. I only spent about £1,000 on it. But at the same time, it was something to do, and it was again, even though I wasn't out in the pubs with all your pals and that, for me it was a big thing. So anyway, I've rambled on there for quite a bit about work, but that was the kind of like start of my work life and that. And do you want me to kind of go into more of my work, or you get any other questions, or?
If you don't mind, mate, how obviously how work have supported you, obviously through like a tough time, and obviously how your mindset's been throughout.
Well, I'll give you a quick rundown of things after that. Well, I went and did a work programme from Ingis, which was across from the Gaiety Theatre in there. If no one's heard of them, I don't know if they still operate under that name, but they were really good. I'd got quite a lot of support from them. They helped me write a CV. Obviously, because of my work life, my school life and leaving school earlier, I needed a bit of support trying to get into work. So I did my Ingis programme, went and did interviews. I kept getting job interviews, and the amount of job interviews I had was quite a lot. I mean, I used to go, I think I had quite a few Arnold Clark at the time, and I kept doing the interviews, and over time, as I said, confidence kept growing because as I did them, I got quite good at them. I get good feedback from my interviews. Even if I get rejected, I still would ask for feedback, how I did, how my interview skills were. And I finished the programme, and what happened was I'd walked into Arnold Clark in Ayrshire, handed my CV in one day. I just walked around all the car dealerships because, as I said, I like cars. I thought I'll get into something I'm interested in. So I walked into Ayrshire and I handed my CV in. The girl says to me, "What are you looking for?" I says, "Well, I don't. It depends what's going to go in. Is any jobs going at the time?" So the manager calls me in, says to me, "We've got a job going right now for a service driver." I was like, "Okay, that's fine." He says, "So what you can do is you can come back in for an interview on Friday." Because this guy's leaving this week. So I was like, "That's fine." I says, "I'll happily come in on Friday." So I came back in on the Friday, did the job interview, felt it went quite well, but me being a bit of a pessimist at the time, I didn't think I was going to get it. The job itself they don't come up very often, these type of jobs, and turns out the timing was really good because he phoned me back up and he says, "You've got the job." He says, "Just let me know when you can start." And this was a full-time job with Arnold Clark. It's 45 hours a week. And this was when I think things really started to kick on for me because having a full-time job was a big deal to me. I was struggling to get anything. And then this job comes along at the right time. And then I started there and I stayed there from 2014 to 2017. And I don't know if I touched on the last time that I'd had the seizure.
Yeah, you mentioned that. How did that come about?
Well, I was coming back from Ayr one day. This was I think this was on Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd finished working the Friday. So I went up to Ayr with my girlfriend, and we went to Burger King and a couple of other places.
Mm-hmm.
Came back down the road. As I was coming down the train, started to feel a bit funny.
Yeah.
And then we're walking down the main street, and I just remember thinking I was seeing an ambulance in the street.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking down the street and I'm thinking to myself, why is an ambulance sitting outside the pizza shop?
Uh-huh.
Right. So that was my last memory
Uh-huh.
of what I thought happened that. So I woke up in this ambulance and the guy says to me, where do you think you are? And I was like, I'm in here. He says, no, you're in Girvan. I was like, no, I'm in here. And I disagreed with the guy. I was like, no, I'm in here.
Uh-huh.
And the guy's like, do you want a can of Pepsi and all that? He says, no, I don't like Pepsi, but I do like Pepsi. And the guy's looking at me as if to say, is this guy all right or something?
Uh-huh.
And then he gives me a biscuit because my blood sugar was really low.
Uh-huh.
And this is what I was told by my girlfriend at the time. What happened was we were walking up towards the pizza shop, and I says, I'm too warm. And I had a big jumper at the time. And I says, I'm really, really warm. I said, and she said to me, well, just take your jumper off. I was like, no, I'm gonna take my jumper off. So my temperature at this point, I think, was going up because I wasn't behaving normally. And she was, what happened was I veered off to the right. She was in front of me, and I veered off to the right hand side, and I fell into the pizza shop's window, and I went head first against the window, hit my head against it, and fell on the ground.
Uh-huh.
And she said, I fell on the ground. You were kind of like unconscious for maybe about 20, 30 seconds. I didn't look like I was aware where I was.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, I foamed at the mouth, and they had to actually dab my mouth because there was just, as I said, there was foam coming right from my mouth. So, and then they tried to get me onto the wee bed thing to get into the ambulance, but I felt I was refusing. I wasn't cooperating with them. I wasn't wanting to go into it. I don't know why.
Uh-huh.
And then I woke up in the ambulance, and I don't have any recollection of what had happened because in my head it was there. The ambulance was already there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I remember. I don't know what happened. So, to give a very long story short, I had to go through about 10 different tests to find out if there was anything wrong with me, if I had epilepsy. But the doctor I spoke to thought it was a viral thing that had happened, and it was just by chance that I just fell unconscious, and I was fine. But this was a bad period because then I had to surrender my driving license because I couldn't drive for 6 months. So I handed my notice in at Arnold Clark, which, looking back on it, I wish I hadn't done that because I loved the job. But I couldn't support myself money-wise because I was only on sick pay at the time.
Yeah.
So I was only on sick pay, and I couldn't earn any money. So I thought I need to make a decision here because a job had come up at Land Energy, and I thought, well, I could take that and at least earn money in the time from now. And then I sold my Volvo, the gold one I was telling you about earlier. Sold that just to get a bit more money.
Yeah.
And then from then on out, I think it felt like going back to 2007, 2006 period where I was in a bad place because I couldn't do anything anymore. I couldn't go to my work, which was a big part for me. I couldn't drive, which was a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
And it got so bad that when I was told that I couldn't drive, and then I was told I had to surrender my license, and then I had to go and do all these tests. I remember being in the bedroom, I had a panic attack. I get panic attacks these days, but it's more an anxiety attack where I might speak really quickly, or I start to stutter my words, which is something I do. But this time it was an actual panic attack where I was hyperventilating and I couldn't breathe. And I was on the floor, hitting the floor repeatedly. And I just got really, really bad. And Christopher was on the phone at the time. My mum was in the room with me. And I felt like I was having a mental breakdown because everything that had built up to that point where everything was going really well just felt like it came crashing back down again.
Yep.
And that's how it felt for me. I just felt like everything that I'd built and I'd done and I pushed towards, it just get thrown away. And that's how it felt at the time. Because for me, I just felt like it went backwards. And my depression and my anxiety, and I think everything just went, I would say it was probably some days were better than others. I think I struggled because I couldn't leave the house. because I think that I was kind of getting to that same stage where I just didn't want to get the house anymore.
Yeah.
My depression got really bad, and it was one of the longest periods of my life. It was only half a year, but it was a very long period. And when I managed to get my license back, because they did all the tests on me, I came back and fine, got my license back. Once I got the license for the post, that was like Christmas for me. Seeing my license in front of me again, I can go and drive again. Yeah, that was probably when things went back down again for me. That's a kind of rundown of my working life at that stage. But yeah, I'll let you ask more questions before I keep going.
No, no worries, mate. So as I said, obviously it felt as if it was like a couple of steps forward and 20 steps back for you, obviously, at that time. How, see, obviously, you mentioned you lost your licence. That was your dream job, probably, like working with cars and things like that. And as you say, you thought, I've got myself back on my feet again in a good place, so place look forward, and then just shows you within an instant things can change. And that's a physical illness, what's happening. It then also triggers you mentally. Did you have any thoughts coming back to you that when you were like 12 and 13? Was it like, were you contemplating, were you looking at the window again, thinking, I want it?
I think a lot of the things that I think things have changed a lot since then. As an adult, one of the things I tend to do a lot more is I tend to actually keep a lot of things to myself, which is ironic because we're having this chat right now. But I did keep a lot of things to myself as I got older. I tended to be a bit more closed off as I got older. Now I'm 29 now, but probably I was 26, 27 at the time. I just didn't talk as much about things. I just tend to just move on. I used to always have this attitude, just take each day as it comes, and we'll just see how I'll deal with this day, and I'll move on to the next. And if this day doesn't go well, there's tomorrow, and then there's the next day. And that's just how I started to, my mindset changed a wee bit. I just thought, stop trying to worry about problems that have not happened. Just try to focus on the here and now, which does help me. It's a coping mechanism I still use to this day. And yesterday, I had really bad allergies at work, and it's going to sound daft, but I'm sitting at work thinking, I don't feel great the day, and my mindset was I just felt low. I just had one of those days.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my work that caused it. There wasn't any necessarily a cause for it. I just felt low, and I got to the house and had a quick shower on that, and I started to feel a bit better. Because one thing you've probably heard before, if you feel a bit low, sometimes a shower helps you.
Yeah.
It refreshes you, makes you feel a bit better.
It basically cleanses out all the pores, doesn't it? And like
it does make a big difference.
Yeah. And also that must have been hard for you, like also what you went through, and like also it's great you're here talking about it and they're opening up about it. So how did, as I said, also that impacted you massively, that obviously hitting the head off the pizza shop window, you and your just thinking it's got a normal night, you and your missus are away out, and
I thought we'd just try to get into the pizza shop because
got somebody threw it against you because you didn't pay for your pizza or something. But as you say, things have looked up for you since then. Even when you're having like a bad day, do you speak about it now, or do you just like, do you feel as if it's like going to trigger you if like you're having a bad day? If you talk about it, it'll make you feel worse, or do you feel better for
it? I'd say mostly one of the things I do a lot is, for me, music's a big part of me. I'm a big fan of my music. I use it for a lot of things. If I'm having a bad day, a lot of times what I like to do is I'm in the house myself, and I'll put on a song that relates to me. I know you hear before, I'll put on music to make them more depressed, or well, not depressed, but more upset is the word. And sometimes I do that. I'll put a song that relates to my mood. So if I'm in a low mood, I'll put a song that relates to how I'm feeling. And sometimes it helps, and sometimes it doesn't. Some days you'll do it and you'll feel a bit better, and then other days it doesn't help. I think it depends on the song you listen to, but for me, music's a good coping mechanism itself. It can help me a lot, and I share a lot of quotes to do with mental health and music and that kind of thing. And a lot of it for me is music really does help me. It can change your perspective from that moment.
Definitely.
It can make a big difference. Even if you go into YouTube and you watch a motivational video, you can think, see, after you watch that video, it's a 10-minute video, you watch it, you've heard like guys like Rocky Balboa do quotes on it, and the next minute you think you talk the whole world.
Yep.
You know, your mindset can just change in 2 minutes.
It's crazy, mate. Honestly, that's what I done. Like, seeing I was feeling obviously down, and what I done, I was quite similar to you. I was like posting quotes on Instagram and that, but it's like the close friend story. I was posting it so only certain people can see it. Like,
Right.
if I was struggling to open up to like people that were close to it, and then I was listening to like sad songs and that, and Fighting Rabbit and stuff. I was like, like, it's obviously Fighting Rabbit. My heart was out to the man's family, also the lead singer of them. He sadly passed away a couple of years ago due to mental health, and I was similar to you, just posting like music relating to my mood, Instagram, like on stories, quotes and that. And I was having one of my pals like one night. She was in my close friend, and it was her sister. She messaged me, she's like, "You're all right. Like, you've done this before. You'll get through it." And I think that was really, like, she just hearing that, like, reassurance, kind of like, it does make you realise like things do get better, even though at that time you're not thinking like. So that was like ages, like, a couple of months ago. And also I'll just touch on the Clydebank Post. I've got an interview on that coming out on Wednesday. So this interview's getting released tonight, so that'll be like just telling me what I'm doing with this channel, raising awareness. So that's out in the Clydebank Post edition on Wednesday. Big thanks to the Clydebank Post as well for publishing that. But just touching back on, obviously, I was like putting that in store, and then I was getting people, "Ah, you're right, make things get better." But at the time I wasn't thinking, I'm just like, nah, I'm done. Honestly, I just can't be bothered anymore. But that's why I relate myself to you. Obviously, like, you post your feelings on Instagram, or like how you're feeling. So, seeing you post that, does that make you feel better?
I think sometimes with posting certain things on social media, I think that a lot of people that will look at these kind of things can sometimes look at it and go, "You're attention seeking," which is how some folk might look at it. I don't look at it that way. I feel like you're trying to say something, but you don't know how to say it. And these quotes and things, it's sometimes you relate to it straight away. You look at that and go, "That's me," but you don't know how to convey that to other people. So these quotes you're seeing on social media or wherever you do see them, this is like your thoughts, but you're trying to, let me say, you're trying to kind of let people in to how you think a wee bit. It can make you feel better though when other folk read it and they might turn around and they might message you and go, I completely relate to that. That's me, you know. I do feel a lot of times when I share these things, very rarely do I get anyone messaging me and saying, "Are you okay?" You know, but then I'm not really doing it for that reason. I'm just kind of it's something that means something to me, and I want to share it with fellow folk. And one thing I like of social media is the ability to do that. Because we go back a long time ago, we couldn't do this. We couldn't speak to people, whether it be through a video chat or whether it be through a quote online. You know, it's good to have that access to do these kind of things now. But I would say, to answer your question, I do think it makes me feel good to share these things. I think it's good. I think, like I said, one small step is a massive for some people. So yeah, I definitely think it's a good thing, and I continue to do it to this day. I mean, anyone who follows me or is on my Facebook will see I post these kind of things.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'll put I'll put Thomas's Instagram in the description for this video if anyone like wants to also speak to him if they've had similar experience. Also,
yeah, absolutely.
So I'll put that in there. Just remember, no crude messages now to him, please. But no, just touching on that. Also, it's relatable. So it is, like, putting like you're feeling. Sometimes like you struggle to get the words out. Don't like you don't know. You know what you're feeling, but you can't like explain it properly.
Yeah.
So I do sometimes feel like I'm on interviews like this. I'm kind of like, how do I get this out? How do I approach this? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's just I'm new to this, so like as I say, any feedback would be greatly appreciated from everyone watching. But I was the same. Like, see, like come back, people go, "Oh, it's just attention seeking." Well, it's quite a big. It's a lot of work to just be attention seeking, because I was watching like Kenny Kenny does the Flip the Mindset podcast. He was he had some bad comments on his videos, like, "Oh, you're just attention seeking and you're just wanting people to feel sorry for you." He's like that. Kenny doesn't want to be feeling like that at all. He just, no one ever wants to feel down, and whoever wants to feel like depressed, it's just an illness. It's something in your brain that controls you, and you can't like deal with it. Do you know what I mean? Touching on that, like, it's good you're expressing your feelings, because, and also people messaging you saying that's like relatable to me. And
Yeah.
have you ever like, been affected by like something similar, like from someone close to you, like a friend or a family, if they like felt the way you felt before and you felt them?
Well, my mum, she's, since she was probably in her, probably kind of mid, I'll say, I think when it would probably start, but she's had really bad depression
Yeah,
for years. And one of the problems with that is that because my mum's goes through it herself,
yeah,
when I'm telling her stuff about how I'm feeling, a lot of the reasons I probably do close myself up a bit is because my problems then become her problems on top of her own problems.
hmm,
And you sometimes don't want to express how you're feeling because you feel like a burden at times, because you feel like then you're telling this person who's got her own issues, and when you've got depression, you know, the space in your head is just closes up. You don't have that space. And I can understand that. I understand that more now being older. So
hmm,
it's not as easy for me to talk to her about it, because she's, even though she understands,
hmm,
it's a lot to take in for her as well. And I mean, not that you shouldn't be talking at all, because you should,
hmm,
because it does help. But that's probably one of the reasons I don't talk as much about it, because she goes through her own things. She's in a much better place today, by the way. She's you know, she's got a good working environment she's in now, and
yeah,
she's brilliant. She's a brilliant carer, some
yeah.
fantastic carer, and she's met some great people at work. And I'd say she's in a very good place today, in which I'm really happy, because for me, if she's happy, I'm happy. So
Exactly, and she'll probably feel the same. Like
yeah,
towards you. It's just a mother's instinct. My mum's still the same. I think my mum's happy if I'm feeling happy, but they're
it
just
doesn't matter how old you are, mate. It doesn't matter how old you are.
no, exactly. That's what everyone says to me. Like, my mum, her husband, he say like that to me. It doesn't matter. Like I think he's 48, and he's like, like my mum still. If I go like to my mum's then I'm on the way home, she's like, alright, phone me 2 or 3 times like before you get home, and he's like, alright, but it's just a mother's instinct, and with the loss with her mother's and her father, so we would the
Absolutely. I mean, my mum, she's quite funny. I mean, she's not a great texter and all that, but you know, you can send her a message over, say, "I love you, mum," and she'll respond, and she'll be like, "Okay, that's that."
it's either that or the thumbs up, innit? Like, I don't think the older generation realise how sarcastic that thumbs up is on Facebook.
That's my pet peeve, by the way. I don't like the thumbs up. That is one of my pet peeves. I can't stand it.
I hate it,
If
I
I
know.
send a message to someone and just go thumbs up, it's just like, whatever.
I know, because it's like upbeat it. But also touching on the how's things for you just now, Thomas, like in like life in general, how are things if you
Well, one of the things I was going to better touch on before I get into that is my previous job.
yeah,
This is another bit. I'll give you. I'll not make this too long, but my last job, I worked for a place in. Yeah, I'm not going to name the place. And I started that job after I left Land Energy.
yeah,
This was like my license back.
mm-hmm,
So continuing on from there, I got this job as a valeter and a
yeah,
driver, kind of similar to my old job, but a bit more in detail. It was a body shop. I'm not going to name that body shop's name.
oh, sorry,
And yeah, I started there, and my anxiety wasn't great at the time anyway. I was in a pretty bad state, but I was getting better. And I was, like I said, I was back into work, so I had my license back, so I was getting to a better stage, and I was feeling like I was getting back to my old self. And I started that job, and I think it was around about 2018. Started that job, and then the first week at the job, didn't really like the set, didn't like the environment it was in,
mm-hmm,
didn't like some of the people, didn't like the management side. Just felt like I was in eggshells as soon as I walked into the building.
yeah,
And this same week, I decided to contact my dad,
mm-hmm,
who I hadn't seen since I was probably 14, maybe 15, a push.
What age
So
would you have been? Sorry to interrupt, mate. What age would you have been then when you contacted your dad? What age were you at that time?
so I would have been coming. Yeah, just turned 27, I think.
So that's over a decade.
Coming 27.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't that much, not much younger. I was 29 now, so probably about 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So contacted my dad
Mhm.
because I felt like, for some reason in my head at the time, I felt like I need to speak to him because at this point in my life, I thought I might not get the chance
Mhm.
to have closure. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because the last time I seen my dad, I was just a kid, And now at this point, I'm a fully grown adult. I'm thinking it's time to now maybe just speak to him. Not that I felt like I was going to get anything from it, but because I felt like I needed to do it.
Yeah.
So I contacted. He worked for a place called Milligan's Coaches,
Aye.
which I think it's Moss Blown kind of area.
Mhm.
So contacted the work and I got a response, and it turned out the person who responded to the email was him. He must have had the work's email at the time, so he got the email straight to himself.
Yeah.
I says, I just want to meet you. I says, I just want to speak to you about a couple of things, blah blah. I says, meet me on the Saturday, down by Girvan Beach, and we'll meet. So he came, he met me.
Mhm.
And at this time my dad would have been 63 years old, I think he would have been, and I would have been about 26, 27.
Yeah.
So we spoke about things in the past, and it wasn't a very long. I think it was there about an hour and a half at the most. We went up to the snack shack out there, just out by the end of Girvan, and we just had a drink and just sat and spoke. And as the conversation kind of went on, I suddenly started to realise that it just something clicked in my head and went, you know what, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
This guy can't give me anything. This guy, he wasn't there as a kid.
Mhm.
And half the stuff he was saying, the manipulative side of his nature was coming out. I seen it all in a different way, and it was like everything my mum had ever said about him, and everything or anything she'd ever told me about him just came straight to me. Everything he was saying was, he would say stuff like, I never said your mum's a bad mum, but the amount of nasty things he was saying about my mum, my gran, and so on. I just seen him. He was transparent to me at that point. I could see straight through it, and as soon as I had that conversation with him, I just realised I was never going to get anything out of it, because people will turn around and say, he's your dad.
Mhm.
It's for me, it's like, it's blood related, but not been funny, but it takes 30 seconds to make a kid. So it's a lifelong commitment to being a dad,
Exactly.
and this whole, he's your dad, I just realised there was nothing there for me anymore.
Yeah.
And he said bye, so I'll make you a phone call at some point. So I drove, you get to, I don't know if you know Girvan, but you've got Stumpy Tower.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I turned right and he turned left, and that was it. That was the end. And it was just, that was the way it was like saying bye, that was it for me. I was done with the whole thing. That was my closure. And he phoned me up, I think it was probably about a couple of days later, because I was starting the job at this place that week coming.
Yeah.
And he phoned me up and he says, I'm just going to ask you, how was your first day at your new job? And I was like, yeah, it was all right and all that. And just the conversation was very dry, very kind of, there was nothing there. And he says, I said, it was good to see you the other day. And I says, and that was it. But the conversation was like 5 minutes. And that was the last time I spoke to my dad. That was the last, that would have been April 2018, I think it was, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah.
And he passed away, I think it was August last year.
Yeah.
I found it later on, he passed away, but yeah, he died age of 65. So that was the last thing we'd ever said to each other. But I look back on it now, I don't have any regrets about, my dad never made an effort. Me and Christopher had no, we didn't have a father figure, as I said, but Christopher, as I told you when we first had a conversation, Christopher had completely, pushed my dad out at a very young age. Christopher he never had rose tinted specs like I did.
Yeah.
I had very I was very forgiving, very much like my gran was as a person as well, and I just seen the good in him.
Yeah.
Whereas Christopher seen him for who he was at the time. And Christopher, I think the last time Christopher spoke to my dad, he would have been either 9 or 10 years old. So Christopher's now what 20, just turned 28.
28,
So
aye.
that's 17, 18 years. I've never seen him, and when he passed away, Christopher's reaction was pretty much, "How are you, Thomas?"
Aye.
Because it wasn't a case, because I knew how Christopher felt deep
Aye.
down. He obviously you'd have mixed emotions because it was his dad, but and the same my mum. You know, my mum, I knew how my mum felt. When I found he'd passed away, though, that whole Friday, that I can't remember much of it. I took my friend around to Irvine because he was dropping his girl off, and he asked me to come into the house, and I don't remember that because my head was just in a completely different planet. I was in a different place. But once the weeks passed on, I was fine. I just needed to kind of get my emotions out.
Yeah.
But yeah, Christopher, as I said, Christopher completely isolated himself from him, and I think that me and Christopher now look back and it's shit happens. So
That's mate, it does, and that's the thing.
that.
Yeah.
And it's everyone, and I've got people in my life that know they've got parents. And I do sometimes turn around and go, I wish that was me sometimes, but then I look and go, but I've got a mum that is, supporting me from from when I was a wee boy to now. And my mum is, well, she's my rock, and if it wasn't for her, I don't think I would be here. I really don't.
It just shows you, mate, one person in your life, how much they mean to you and how much they do for you. And I think the right people in your life, you've got to keep them in your life to have a healthy and happy life, don't you?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
And that's the thing. And basically, if you can't like somebody or whatever, if you can't love someone when they're at their worst, then you don't deserve to love them when they're at their best. That's what I always say,
100%.
honestly. So
no, you're spot on, man. That's absolutely right.
Aye, and I appreciate you also opening up about obviously everything the day we spoke about. And as I said to people watching, I'll put Thomas's, I nearly said Chris there, Thomas's Instagram. And
that is the second best looking Higgins.
I know. Well, I'd like to hear the best since you've come on. But, no, I'll put Thomas's Instagram in the bio in the link in the video. And as I say, I appreciate it, mate, for you coming on and
absolutely fine, man. Anytime.
Yeah, open up about it. So if anyone out there's watching been affected by similar to Thomas' experience, just get in contact myself, or if you want to even contact Thomas himself, I'm sure he can help you. Probably help me a lot better than me. Obviously, the physical side of things as well. As I say, mate, I appreciate you coming on, and what a result on Friday for the Scots.
It was a really good result, wasn't it? I never got to see it.
I know, mate. Honestly,
I was delivering to folks' doors at the time, and I had to keep getting updates from folks' doors. I was like, "What's the score?"
Did you? Honestly, mate, I was sweating after about 5 minutes. But no, everyone, as I say, mate, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it.
I just want to, sorry to interrupt you, mate. Just to add something as well. One of the things on the subject of mental health and so on. One of the things for anyone who is wanting to also help themselves, exercise. That's one thing I never touched on.
Yeah.
Best thing you can do is exercise because you give yourself a much better chance.
Yeah.
Feeling good. I mean, I started in the lockdown. Started jogging. You don't have to jog. I know a lot of folk don't like jogging, but I started it and it made a big difference for me. Once you've done a run or you went on a long walk, you feel great.
Yeah.
Put your headphones in, isolate yourself from everything, and just get into that place where you're in a good mood.
Yeah.
And once you've done it, you feel great. And yeah, I've just something I think it's probably missing for a lot of folks' lives is just general exercise. It can make a big difference.
Yeah.
And we talked about that, releasing endorphins and the chemicals in your brain, and there's a lot into that kind of discussion, and I'm not educated enough on it to start talking about it. But yeah, it's just these wee steps that can help. Pardon the pun. So I just wanted to add that because it's made a big difference for my mental health. Absolutely, it's been great, and the lockdown was really tough for a lot of people. And anyone who's watching this will probably be going, "Yeah, it was a really tough time," and the exercise really helped me. And it was like a goal to work towards.
Yeah.
I know a lot of folk will turn around and say, there's folk running about in the lockdown when they went, you only had your one walk a day.
Totally.
and you weren't meant to be, and he says, all these folk have just turned into, gym monkeys. They wanted to go to the gym, they wanted to go and start running now. But for me, it was huge. It really made a big difference, and I never felt guilty about holding takeaways anymore. It was great.
Yeah. Oh no, it's good. Honestly, it's just it does release endorphins. Exercise, it's a good thing. So even if you're having a bad day and you feel as if I can't be bothered doing anything, go out and turn that bad day into a good day. Go out and do an exercise. Go and see somebody. Go and help somebody with something. It'll make you feel good as well as them, and making the society a better place. Because honestly, it's a stigma we're trying to tackle, folks, regarding this just now. It's affecting every single family every day in any walk of life, and it's just important. Obviously, we do these things and we talk about it. It doesn't. If you don't want to talk about it, like open up on this, you can get in contact with myself or anyone from any podcast channel or anyone in walk of life, anyone that you trust. Get in contact with them, express how you're feeling, because trust me, it'll make you feel better. Because me doing this, it's not for my good. Well, it is for my good, kind of, in a way, but I'm just trying to help other people as well. Like, first of all, and it's just important to speak about these things. And no, as I say again, mate, just thanks very much for opening up with everything and as honest as you can.
I think, as I said to you beforehand, someone starting up something like this takes a lot of courage, because coming on to speak on a camera is something that for me it was quite. I came on here today, I'm not going to lie, I was a bit anxious coming on here today, not because of you, but because you're talking on a camera and it's not as easy. I mean, I've watched, you watch people in, like, I don't know, open goal, whatever you want, and they're all talking about it, they're just joking about and all that, and I'm watching that going, I wish I could do that. I think it's quite daunting going into doing it. It's difficult to talk to person.
I know, mate, especially when you see Slady, like Slady just singing, like he's just when I'm ever feeling bad, mate, I actually just turn on open goal for an episode of him, Sai, and Jeff Kyle, like that podcast the other day where they started singing about Slady on the Tinder song. I was in stitches, mate, honestly. I just love the guy, and that's my dream guest. See, they three, I'd love to get them on, honestly. They are the best guys. Definitely, mate, they are the best guys, honestly. I actually DM Sai sometimes on Instagram what that guy is. He's top man.
A great bunch of lads and that, and the thing is, you said just there, you turn that on when you're having a bad day.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that for me, it's like I'll come in the house and I'll put on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I'll sit and watch car reviews about cars I'll never ever own. Right. I enjoy that. That's great. I just sit and listen to these guys talk about motors, and that's my kind of comfort place where I'm sitting here, and I'll be sitting on YouTube and I'll just watch random reviews of cars. I'll watch just like old clips from like movies and stuff like that. I was sitting watching clips all day from Fast and Furious and all that. I could go watch the film, but I just watch the clips on it. It's just that's for me. That's the comfort thing.
I know, it's just brilliant, honestly. It's just, see things like that, but obviously you love watching cars and stuff like that, but you could be having an absolute brutal day at work, or whatever, it could be a brutal day, just a bad day in general, and you could turn it on and you could go, I had a good wee night tonight, so I did just watch things like that, and it's just important to talk about.
It helps, it really does help you. It's just me. I mean, it's like, I think we've all got our, as we thought referred to, it's a comfort blanket. We've got something that we go to. We're having a bad day, or just something in general. I mean, for me right now, as I said, the exercise is one of mine. I'll jump to that if I'm feeling kind of low, or I'll do it. And actually, before I do it, I'll be sitting thinking, I don't feel great with this. I'm not in the mood for this. And like yesterday, or the day before that, I was I didn't want to go to run. I didn't have the mindset to go out and run. I didn't feel in the place to do it. Didn't want to see people. I just wanted to be in the house. So what I did is I compromised with myself. I thought, right, you're going to do something. You're not going to sit here and go, oh, I can't be bothered. So what I did is I went and did a workout for YouTube in the house, just me, myself. Then I felt great after I'd done it, because even though I never went out, I still compromised and thought, well, I'll do something, because it's just wee things like this can make a difference, and it gets you through your day. And my current job as well, I never touched on that, but I work for Asda in Ayr.
Yeah.
And I do the home delivery, and that job's good for me because it's a great management, great staff, great place to work, and you're delivering to folks' houses. You're meeting different people, and you're talking to people that got some nice stories. You get some older folk who've obviously they've lived quite a long life. They can you're sitting talking to you, and they've not seen anyone for the lockdown. And it's good for them. It's good for me, because I like hearing it, and I've always got the time. I'll stand and I'll talk to them for about. There's been times I've never been late because I'm sitting talking about random things. Yeah, it's the job I'm in right now. I'm happy, and it's helped me a lot. And what, as I said, it's helped me. Christopher's in a good place. My mum's in a good place.
Yeah.
These things help me so much, and as I said to you, I really do appreciate being invited onto this, and I also appreciate the fact you're doing this because, as I said, you deserve a lot of credit for that, and it's a big deal, and the more people do it, the better. And there's people out there that do it. I've seen folks start out making these kind of channels, and they're supporting folk from all over the world, and it becomes bigger, and it's good because it reaches out to more people, and the more people you reach, the more you get to tackle this, and that's exactly what we need to do. And it's and I don't feel uncomfortable talking about it. Even though, as I said to you beforehand, I said that I don't talk as much, but giving me the platform to speak this means a lot, and I do, and I hope it does help someone. And like I said, if anyone wants to talk to myself or yourself, it's it's absolutely fine.
And as I say, mate, I appreciate you opening up about everything. It's been great talking to you today again. And as I say, just very important if you want to speak, anyone watching want to speak to me or Thomas, you can get in contact with us, but I'll just further warning, no dodgy messages, right? I've already did a few of them. But no. But no, cheers again, mate, for coming on. I appreciate it. Everyone, thanks for watching the second episode of Every Mind Matters with myself, Mikey Doak. It's been a pleasure talking to Thomas today, and I will see you again for the episode. Don't know when it's going to come out. It might be in the next week or so, but I'll let you know on my Instagram channel, and I'll put a link in the bio on my page as well. All right. Thanks very much, mate, for coming on. I appreciate it again, Thomas.
No worries, man. You take care anyway.
Much you take care as well. All right. Cheers, mate.
Catch you soon, man.
See you, mate. Bye.